In the quiet dormitories of Sarah Lawrence College, a storm was brewing, one that no one could have foreseen. Larry Ray, a man whose past was cloaked in tales of political intrigue and personal vendettas, had embedded himself into the lives of young, impressionable students. It began as a father's attempt to reconnect with his daughter Talia, or so it seemed. But the reality was far more sinister. Larry wasn't just a guest in the dorm, he was a man with a plan to dominate, manipulate, and exploit. Welcome to the true stories of the Diary of Darkness. Let's delve into the case of the Sarah Lawrence sex cult. The students of Sarah Lawrence were known for their academic rigor and creative spirit. But Larry Ray saw an opportunity to exploit their vulnerabilities. He began to hold late-night sessions where he would share his twisted philosophies and manipulate the minds of those around him. Slowly, he isolated them from their families and friends, creating a cult-like environment. The once vibrant campus turned into a place of fear and control. It wasn't long before the authorities were alerted and an investigation began. Larry Ray was eventually arrested and brought to justice, but the scars he left on the students of Sarah Lawrence would last a lifetime. The community began to heal, but the story of Larry Ray serves as a dark reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the most unexpected places. As the sun rises over Sarah Lawrence College, a new day begins, but the shadows of the past remain. This is the story of the Sarah Lawrence sex cult, a tale of manipulation, control, and the resilience of the human spirit. Talia Ray, a student at Sarah Lawrence, had long spoken highly of her father. She had described him as a well-traveled, well-educated man who had been wronged by the world. According to Talia, Larry was a victim of a political conspiracy and had spent time in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Upon his release in 2010, he had nowhere to stay. By then, Talia was a sophomore at Sarah Lawrence College, and Larry Ray began crashing on the couch of the campus apartment she shared with several roommates. Despite his time behind bars, Talia spoke of him in reverential terms, and when Larry arrived at Sarah Lawrence in 2010, the students welcomed him as her father. He became an enigmatic figure in their lives, playing the role of a sympathetic, world-weary man who could offer advice and guidance. Larry Ray, now in his 50s, was tall and well-built, with a commanding presence that left people with the impression that he was someone who could be trusted. He quickly ingratiated himself with the students, offering them help with their academic struggles, providing guidance on relationships, and even cooking meals for them. Larry's ability to talk about anything, politics, psychology, philosophy, made him appear intellectual, knowledgeable, and, most importantly, trustworthy. But beneath the surface of this seemingly benevolent figure, a much darker force was at work. Larry had learned the art of manipulation over the years, and he would soon begin to exercise that skill on the students around him. His method was insidious, working in subtle, almost unnoticeable steps. Larry Ray, unlike other predators who might rely on physical intimidation, knew that the most effective way to control people was through their minds. It started with casual conversations. Larry began to talk to the students individually, slowly prying into their personal lives. He seemed genuinely interested in them, asking about their families, their childhoods, their dreams. With each conversation, Larry peeled back the layers of their personalities, uncovering their insecurities and weaknesses. He exploited every small crack in their psyches, planting seeds of doubt about their families, their friends, and even their own identities. Larry presented himself as a mentor, a father figure who understood their pain and could help them navigate the complex world of adulthood. He told them he could see their potential, framing himself as someone who could unlock their greatness. As time passed, Larry's influence over the students deepened. He encouraged them to confide in him, to trust him with their most intimate thoughts. He framed his interventions as acts of kindness, suggesting that he was helping them in ways no one else could. However, Larry's real goal was to make them dependent on him. He wanted to ensure that every decision, every thought, every emotion was filtered through his lens. Larry would tell them that their friends and families didn't understand them, that only he truly had their best interests at heart. His manipulation escalated when Larry began to subtly sow distrust among the students. He would pit them against one another, telling them that their friends didn't have their backs, or that their parents were judgmental and controlling. He also began to dictate how they should behave, what they should wear, who they should talk to, what they should think. These were small, seemingly insignificant changes at first, but they gradually chipped away at the students' sense of autonomy. Larry was creating an environment where their identities were no longer their own. They were now defined by his needs and desires. Larry's control extended beyond emotional manipulation. He began to exploit the students financially. He accused them of causing him financial hardship, claiming that their actions had harmed him in some way. This could have been something as trivial as leaving a door open or breaking a plate. Larry would turn these minor incidents into major issues, claiming that the students owed him vast sums of money. In his mind, they had become debtors, and they were bound to pay for their perceived wrongdoings. To repay their debts, Larry coerced several students into performing demeaning tasks. One student, Claudia Drury, became the most vulnerable of all. Larry pushed her into sex work, claiming it was the only way for her to repay the enormous financial debt he had imposed upon her. He isolated Claudia from her friends and family, placing her under constant surveillance. Larry controlled her every move, dictating what she wore, where she went, and who she interacted with. He even monitored her financial transactions, ensuring that every dollar she earned went to him. At the same time, Larry's influence spread to other students. He began to make increasingly outrageous demands, and yet the students, who were by now psychologically fragile and emotionally dependent on him, complied. They believed that if they pleased Larry, they would be absolved of their debts and could return to their normal lives. But Larry's hold over them only tightened. He began to exploit the students sexually, using coercion, threats, and manipulation to get what he wanted. The dorm that had once been a place of learning and growth had transformed into a house of horrors. The pressure of living under Larry's control became unbearable for some of the students. They began to crack under the strain of his demands. But even as they struggled, they remained trapped in a cycle of fear and dependency. Their lives were no longer their own. They were constantly waiting for Larry's approval, terrified of his wrath if they did something wrong. The situation began to unravel when one of the students, Claudia, managed to escape. After enduring months of psychological and physical torment, she found the strength to break free from Larry's grasp. She fled to a safe place and, for the first time, began to piece together the reality of what she had experienced. Claudia's escape was a turning point. She contacted the authorities, and what they uncovered was nothing short of horrifying. Through the testimonies of Claudia and other students, law enforcement was able to build a case against Larry Ray. The details were chilling. Larry had systematically destroyed the lives of the students, turning them into mere pawns in his twisted game. He had used their vulnerabilities against them, manipulating them into doing things they never would have imagined. In 2019, the case made headlines when New York Magazine published a detailed article about Larry's activities. The article, which exposed the full extent of Larry's control and manipulation, stunned the public. Larry's reign of terror was finally coming to light. Law enforcement agencies across the country launched an investigation into his activities, and Larry was arrested in 2020. The investigation uncovered evidence that Larry had been running a sex trafficking operation using the students to extort money and services from them. He was charged with a range of offenses, including sex trafficking, forced labor, and extortion. During his trial, the survivors bravely took the stand, recounting their harrowing experiences in front of the court. Larry's defense was laughable, as he attempted to portray himself as a misunderstood man who had been wronged, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. In 2022, Larry was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 60 years in prison. The students who had been his victims could finally begin the process of healing. They were no longer under his control, no longer living in fear. Larry Ray would never again have the power to manipulate or destroy lives. Let me know, what do you think of this case and which you would like to see next? Till next time.